Hey, Coco here again. This is video number 2. This one will be about crypto as it relates to intentional DAO. Why we're using crypto, how we're using it, why we think it's important. As it's going to probably be a long video. Maybe I'll split it up into 3, or maybe I'll just get inspired and talk about the whole thing for over an hour. Hopefully it's not that long. I'll try to be concise. But the general idea about why we're using crypto is we're trying to really do something that's never been done, where we have an international group of people that don't really know each other. Of course, some people will know some people, but by and large, it'll be a group of people that don't know each other, may never meet. And we want to structure this in a way that there's nobody that owns it. There's no group that owns it. There's no group that's in control. There's no group that dictates who can contribute and who gets compensated and who has privileges to come to the land or anything like that. We want all that to happen organically from the governance structure that we set up. So yeah, I think crypto is uniquely positioned to be able to facilitate something like this. And so, this is going to be a grand experiment because it's never been done. And part of the good thing about that is, while nobody has to contribute any money to be a member of Intentional DAO, and you can get all the benefits of a paying member, just by putting energy and participation into the pot. But even the people that are putting down money, because we're going to need money to buy the land and build structures and things of that nature. We're not asking anybody for a whole huge amount. We want to grow into a very large community, and just sell the NFTs that allow access to the land for relatively cheap, so that everyone can maintain this idea that the whole thing is an experiment, a fun, grand, amazing experiment. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work, and the whole thing goes to shit. Worst case, we still bought a chunk of land and put it in a trust, and nobody will ever be able to develop it, and so we've done good for the world in that way. With crypto, we want to use the crypto to compensate people. We want to use crypto to align. Oh gosh, there are mosquitoes around here. Ugh. I'm gonna get eaten alive. I'm gonna take this phone and okay, I made it. No more mosquitoes. I think I only got 5 bites. Fucking hate mosquitoes. Anyway, back to crypto and what we intend to use it for. So we want to pay people with crypto. We also want to use it to align the incentives of everyone in the group. This includes the incentives of the people now versus the people that are going to be in the DAO years down the road. Just for a quick example, we don't plan on having a big airdrop because that really rewards all of the early members and the founders, to the detriment of the people that join 10 years down the road, because they don't have the same opportunity to share in the the wealth and the decision-making influence that the early people did, which is the case in a lot of DAOs. But most notably, we want to align the incentives of the residents and the non-residents, so that everything the residents are incentivized to do benefit the non-residents, and vice versa, so that we all love each other and support each other and want each other to succeed in their endeavors in Intentional DAO. The other thing we want to use crypto for is governance. So this is the first topic that I'd like to talk about on this video. Just a quick background. There's a popular narrative going around right now that basically says DAOs are dead. And the reason for this is that DAOs basically all use the same type of governance structure, which is token weighted voting. You can think of token weighted voting as like shareholder voting. So the more shares you own, the more tokens you own, the more of a say you have in governance. And this is not good for very obvious reasons, I think. The more money somebody has, the more power they have in the DAO. And so you're rewarding the rich and allowing them to situate the world in such a way that benefits them and makes them richer and keeps poor people poor. And this is the very thing that I think, communities like us recoil against and would like to opt out from. So no token weighted voting. So there are alternatives to this. So one alternative is one person, one vote, and this is what typically happens in a government. Obviously, the difference between a government and what we're doing is that a government passes laws for its citizens who basically all live within the borders of the country, and the laws impact every citizen more or less equally. Whereas in a DAO, it's much more fluid. Like to become a member of a DAO, I guess every DAO can decide who's a member and who's not, but basically, like, in a lot of ways, joining the Discord and just taking part in some discussions makes you a member. But especially, there's some other things that won't make sense if I talk about them now, but by the end of this video will. But anyway, easy to join the DAO. You don't have to do much, but then maybe you have somebody else that's like extremely involved. It's like always bringing up topics in the meeting. That's like doing work at home. I use this example a lot, but like making the website better, revamping that and keeping it up to date, or like going to the land and helping out with projects on the land, all this kind of stuff. Like, should both of these people have an equal amount of say in governance? And I would say no, but I would also say it's up to the DAO. So if by and large everybody in the DAO values both of these people the same, then they will have an equal say. But that's the whole idea. Like, there's no centralized group of people or person, even elected people, that should be able to make this decision. The amount of say that somebody has should be an emergent property of the community itself. And crypto, I think, uniquely enables this to happen. So what do we plan on doing? Well, there are other forms of governance, and another popular phrase in crypto is that crypto is speed running what is the history of human finance and self-governance, or finance and governance. And basically what that means is that we're just when I say we in the crypto world are experimenting hardcore with all these different financial protocols. Was the big first, I guess, major use case in crypto, one could argue, I guess. But there are all these different DeFi protocols, and it's so easy to spin up a protocol as opposed to starting your own bank, that we're able to have like all these different experiments take place and then see what sticks in the end. And the same thing is now happening with governance. And the funny thing is, the problems that DAOs are facing with this token weighted voting is like, well, this is the only thing that we know about. But that's not true at all, because there are plenty of teams out there that have been working for a long time on new novel ways to govern ourselves, that blockchain technology unlocks. The thing is that that's still like very cutting edge stuff. And so you have these protocols out there like Aragon and Orca and DAO House, and others. Those are three of the big ones. But then the one that we are latching onto is one called Colony. And I personally love the governance philosophy behind Colony and all the thought that they put into it. But it's a little bit clunky still. It's still in beta. And it's going to be probably 6 months before the user experience is really upgraded and things get easier to use. And they have a lot of extensions they want to add and all this kind of stuff. But the bottom line is, it is out and it does work. And we also have a relationship now with some of their core members. So if we have any questions about how to use anything, then we have people we can reach out to, which is really cool. But yeah, so I want to explain how Colony's governance works. So the first thing I'll talk about is voter apathy versus lazy consensus. So another problem that a lot of DAOs face, most maybe, is this phenomenon called voter apathy, where you sign in to like Snapshot, which is like a protocol that most DAOs use for voting on proposals, and you have like 20 proposals there because all these different people have made proposals, and your like duty as a DAO member is to read those and be up to date and be able to vote on all of them in order to make the DAO, propel itself forward in the correct direction. The problem is when you have 20 proposals to read and you're supposed to understand the nuances and like talk to fellow DAO members, so you make sure you understand both sides of like the position and all this stuff, and vote. Like after a couple of weeks of this, you're just like, I don't have the energy to do this, especially if you're a member of like 10 different DAOs. So this is what voter apathy is. And what ends up happening is people start dropping off and not voting, and you end up with just the core people who live and breathe that particular DAO voting on the proposals. So what was supposed to be a very decentralized organization and decentralized governance structure ends up becoming very centralized nonetheless. So with Colony, you have this thing called lazy consensus. So lazy consensus is the only way to make a proposal is to put up collateral. And this would be done in our native token, which we're calling the intent token. So in order to make a proposal, say you have to put up whatever we decide this amount should be. So maybe like $10 worth of intent tokens, okay? In order to make a proposal, you're therefore highly incentivized to be confident that that proposal is going to pass, because if it doesn't pass, then you lose that stake. So the first thing that this does is it makes it to where you don't have that many proposals proposed. It cuts down on the number, so DAO members don't have to read near as many. The second thing it does is it puts the onus on the person that's making the proposal to make sure that they have support. So how it would work in practice is somebody wants to make a proposal, they put up their collateral, or they don't put up their collateral yet. They go to the rest of the DAO and they present their idea and they try to garner support. And if there's any pushback on certain points of discussion, then they can change those particular pieces and like tailor it to a proposal that they end up feeling very confident that the DAO is going to vote for. So by the time they make the proposal, more or less everybody in the community knows it's coming and they can read through it pretty quickly and then cast a vote. Now, what happens if someone doesn't go through this this process and they just like willy-nilly throw up a proposal that people don't like? We'll say like someone puts up a proposal that they want $100 from the treasury for themselves just because they want it. Okay. Now, if nobody opposes this proposal after a week or 3 days or however long we want it to be, then it passes. That's what lazy consensus is. Okay. If no one opposes this proposal, then it passes, and this person will get back their stake, their $10 their $10 worth of intent tokens that they staked to make the proposal, and they also get the $100 from the treasury automatically, because that's what the proposal was. Right? Now, if someone reads this and says, "No, nobody ever said we were going to give this guy $100. He's just trying to like rob us of $100," then that person is going to oppose this proposal. In order to oppose a proposal, it's going to get into a tongue twister here. The opposer has to put up the same amount of collateral. So you've got like $10 worth of intent from the proposer, $10 worth of intent from the opposer. Now it goes to a vote. This is the only time that we ever have a vote. Okay. So it goes to a vote, and everybody that has any reputation casts their vote as to whether or not they think this proposal should pass. If the proposal ends up passing, then the opposer loses his stake, and it goes to the person that made the proposal in the first place. If the proposer loses, likewise, the proposer loses their stake of $10 worth of intent tokens, and it goes to the person that opposed the proposal. Now, I mentioned reputation. So this is a system of reputation-based voting. So not token-weighted voting, not one vote per person, but reputation. Now, reputation is earned when someone gets paid in our native token by the DAO. Okay, so if I, in my personal wallet, have some intent tokens and I like transfer some to a friend of mine, just maybe I sell it to them or give it to them or whatever, they don't get reputation from that. The tokens have to come from the intentional DAO colony. Now, for any tokens to be distributed from the intentional DAO colony, they have to have gone through a proposal, like I just talked about. Okay, so what we're assuming here is that if the DAO is paying someone in native tokens, then that is a sign, it's a signal that the DAO respects and values this person's expertise, wisdom, participation, and also that this person is aligned with the rest of the DAO members and our values. And the treasury will have more than our native tokens. We'll also have like stable coins or ETH or whatever, definitely stable coins, because that's what we're going to be selling the NFTs for probably. So if we're paying somebody that's not a member of the DAO, that's just basically, maybe we need some expertise that we can't take care of in-house. Maybe we pay like a contractor for some kind of building. We would pay him in stable coins, in dollars, basically, not in intent tokens, because we don't want him to have a reputation, because why would we want him to be making, helping make any decisions in the DAO's like internal governance. So when someone is paid in intent tokens, those tokens come with an equal number of reputation points. And when there's a vote, the protocol looks at all of the reputation points that all the DAO members have, and they assign a percentage to them. So if you're voting on a proposal and you have 2% of the reputation points that everyone has, then your vote carries 2% of the weight of all the votes that exist. Now the reputation points degrade over time. So the half-life, I believe, is 3 months. So every 3 months, if you haven't earned any new reputation points, you will have half the reputation that you had 3 months ago. So, and the reason for this is because DAO members change. And like I was mentioning before, we don't want to like favor the early members / founders, because this is an ongoing thing that we hope can like last in perpetuity. And so people that join down the road need to be able to earn as much of a say in what happens in the DAO as people that were here in the beginning. So let's just take a quick example. Let's say we form this thing, we have the land, and I end up having a lot of reputation points, but then I move to Antarctica for 2 years, just because I've always wanted to do that. Not really, although it would be pretty interesting. But for the sake of argument, I moved to Antarctica. After 2 years, I come back, and a lot has happened. My head has not been in the game for 2 years. I don't know like the current events of the DAO. I don't know a lot of the new people, and maybe probably more importantly, a lot of the new people don't know me. And so why would a DAO that consists of a lot of people that weren't there from the beginning be expected to bow down to like the reputation points of somebody who was there in the beginning but who they don't know from Adam? Okay, so that's Colony in the nutshell, and there's more to it than that, but that's like the overview. And votes are based on reputation points, and people don't vote very often, but people are incentivized to watch out for dubious proposals because they can earn money that way. And on the other side, people are incentivized not to make a proposal until they've done the work to ensure that there's buy-in from the community. Then where do these tokens come from? If reputation points come when tokens come, like how do people get tokens? So tokens are created through Colony. We already have our token. It's on the Gnosis chain, which is where Colony is. But tokens will be distributed several different ways. So we'll start off, we're not going to start off with a big airdrop like a lot of crypto projects do, which I already mentioned, because that consolidates power amongst the early members. Rather, we're going to start off the way that Bitcoin did, where we just have a daily inflation, and we disperse those tokens in very specific ways. And so I'll go over that. So we're thinking a 75 token per day inflation rate. So 25 of those tokens will go into a treasury. I think I mentioned this in the first video I did, but I'll just rehash it real fast. 25 of those tokens will go into a treasury that's controlled by the DAO, which will be used to pay for bounties for members. If we have like a member that's a lawyer, for example, and they do some work for us, then we can give them that's like a nice way of saying thank you, or a nice way to entice somebody who is a lawyer that's a member to like help us out with something. And that comes through reputation points. Then there is another third of it, which is 25 tokens per day, will go to the DAO members themselves. Okay, and this will be done by Coordinate, which I already talked about in the other video. But basically, everyone that's a member of the DAO each month will get 100 Coordinate tokens, and will be encouraged to give those to other people. You can't give them to yourself. Give those to other people based on how much value you feel like they brought to the group, and how much you value their input, because these tokens will have value. So it's a nice way to like give somebody a pat on the back, like here's a little bit of money for the work that you've done, but they also come with an equal number of reputation points. So we would do well to not forget that. So that's so then, at the end of the month, all of the Coordinate tokens are averaged out, and the 25 tokens per day that have gone into this pot, which would be 25 times 30, which would be 750 tokens. We would average out like how much each person in the DAO should get based on how many coordinate tokens they got, percentage-wise, right? And then the last third gets a little bit more complex, but basically, so there's 25 tokens per day. Half of that, so 12.5, will go to the residents, and half of that will go to a treasury that the residents control. I'll just explain briefly how that'll work technically. So in Colony, you also have these things called Subdials. A Subdial it's under the umbrella of like the overall colony, the intentional DAO colony, but it would be specifically for maybe a group of people that have a specific type of expertise, maybe, or like the residents, for example. So the residents are definitely going to occupy a unique like niche in intentional DAO. They're kind of going to be the lifeblood or the beating heart of our community, because they're going to be the ones that are always on the property. And so like we really do need to in many ways cater toward them and make sure that they're happy and feel like their voice is being heard, while at the same time not giving them carte blanche decision-making powers over everybody else. You know, we definitely want checks and balances, but we want, you know, the residents to have a very large say in things. So they will automatically get, in addition to what they end up earning from the coordinate round, they will get 12.5 tokens per day split amongst them with the reputation points that come with that. So that will be distributed to their sub-DAO, and then they, as a group, will decide who gets what out of that pot. So the way that would work is they would, you know, they would make a proposal just like anybody else, and their proposal would be maybe to split all of those tokens up once per month equally amongst the residents. And then as long as the other residents are cool with that, nobody will oppose it, and then that'll happen. Okay. Now we'll have another sub-DAO that's a level 4 sub-DAO. So I haven't talked about the levels that much. I think I mentioned them in the last video, but everybody that's a member of Intentional DAO will have a certain role based on the amount of participation that they put in. So if you're a level 4, that's like the highest level. And that's basically a stamp of approval by the DAO saying, we trust you and you've paid your dues, and like we trust you to be a resident if the residents are okay with that. And we trust that you have the DAO's best interest at heart and that you are totally like aligned with our values, right? So this level 4 sub-DAO will get 12.5 tokens per day, and it can the level 4s basically have the power to like make any proposal and do anything they want to with those. But the point of it is for the residents to be able to use these in order to incentivize people to work on the land itself. So if visitors come, we'll have other ways to incentivize people to pull their fair share of the weight on the land. But if there's like a big project or something and the residents need like a little extra oomph to get people onto the land and work extra hard, like really long back-breaking days, like they'll have this pot that fills up a little bit every single day that they can use. Now the reason that the level 4s are all in this sub-DAO is just as a check, because if the residents decided to give themselves, to allocate themselves all of the tokens that go into this treasury, then you've got the 12.5 per day reputation points going to the residents. You've got this other 12.5 reputation points going to the residents. You've got the reputation doled out by the coordinate event, And you run the risk of getting to a point where the residents do have like more than 50% of the control of the voting power, which is what we never want to have happen. We never want anybody to be able to take control of this because it belongs, like I said in the beginning, to all of us. So the other level 4s are only there as a check because the residents are not allowed to give themselves these tokens. And if there's a proposal that's passed, or that's proposed, allocating those tokens and reputation points to the residents, then a level 4 will be there in order to oppose it. That's the only reason that they're part of this subDAO. So they would oppose it. Maybe the residents still overpower them in the subDAO, and the proposal would pass. But because it's a subDAO, there's one other mechanism that we have at our disposal, which is the appeals process. So the person that opposed it can say, okay, I'm calling shenanigans. Let's bring this into like the overall DAO and have like a legit like grand vote around the thing. And then with the combined voting power of everybody in the entire DAO, one would think that there would be enough voting weight to overrule any residents that are trying to stage a hostile coup of the whole project, right? So I don't think that would ever happen, but there needs to be checks in place just in case something ever does. So that's the tokens. So you have this inflation every single day. There's one other mechanism that we'll have that is able to generate tokens, and this will be the coin machine. I think we're going to use coin machine, which is something that's affiliated with Colony. And basically how it's going to work, without getting into the details, is we'll have the intent token. The intent token is like the oil that like keeps the gears turning with all of these incentive alignment, like things that we're coding into the blockchain and all this stuff. It only works if the token is within a certain range of value. So we want it to hover around like $1, maybe like $1 to $3, and not get above $3 and not get far below $1 ever. Okay, so the way that we can make sure that it doesn't rise above $3 is we have this mechanism in place where anybody can buy an intent token anytime they want for $3. Well, starting at $3, but the more you buy, the higher it goes up. And then over time, it comes back down when it never gets below $3. So if the intent token is ever being traded on the open market for $4, somebody will just come buy 1 million of them for $3 from the coin machine, sell those on the open market, and make $1 million. So arbitrage will make sure that the token never increases in value above $3 per token. All right, so we have all these tokens. Now, how do we make sure that with increased supply every single day through infinity, how do we make sure that the token value doesn't drop to like 0? So we'll have two mechanisms for this. The first, I'm moving over because the sun's getting in my eyes. The first will be the way that we allow people to buy NFTs. So NFTs grant people access to the land. And in the beginning, we're probably going to sell these just for stable coins, for dollars, because we're trying to raise a lot of money in order to buy a big chunk of land and renovate structures or build new structures on the land, right? But after that initial push, we're going to open it up to intent tokens as well, where one intent token equals $1 as far as NFT sales are concerned. So if we're selling an NFT for $500, we will also accept 500 intent tokens. So let's just imagine that the intent token is worth 50 cents on the open market. Well, it would make much more sense for someone to go buy 500 intent tokens for $250 and then buy their NFT with intent tokens as opposed to spending $500 so they get it at half price. So then the DAO, when we sell an NFT for intent tokens, we put 10% of those tokens into the pay it forward treasury, and we put 10% of the tokens into a resident multi-sig. So these will not come with reputation points, so they just go into a regular multi-sig treasury, just a treasury that the residents own. So this incentivizes the residents to make the land as welcoming as possible for people to want to come visit, because when it becomes a popular destination, then people want to buy NFTs in order to go visit it. So 10% of the proceeds of that go directly to the residents, and the rest of the purchase price of the NFT, the 80% of intent tokens, will be burned. And that also helps residents, but it also helps all DAO members. Anybody that has intent tokens, it makes those tokens more valuable because less supply of a token, puts upward pressure on the price. And it also makes the DAO stronger because all of the tokens that we issue in order to incentivize people to participate and add value to the DAO are more valuable. So there's that. And then the other mechanism that we have, it has to do with coming to the land in general. So I think I discussed this on the other video too. I talk about this so much, it's hard to remember what I've said to who, but I'll just go over it really quick. So if you want to come to the land, you have to have an NFT. You have to link that with a decentralized identification. And you have to stake $5 in stable coins. And you have to stake 50 intent tokens. So 30 of that will be collateral, kind of like a deposit, making sure you're not gonna wreck the place when you're there, just like a little added incentive to make sure that you're leaving things the way you found them, if not better. And then 20 intent tokens will be your daily payment in order to come stay on the land, basically. And I won't get into the philosophy of this because I am remembering I did talk about this on the other video, but the basic thing I want to talk about here is those 20 intent tokens can be forgiven by a resident if you add value to the land in the resident's point of view, do a chore, help out with some labor, or if not, then they will be burned. So that's 20 tokens per day. So let's just imagine really quick, if the value of the token, it drops below 0, and this sucks for the residents because they're not able to incentivize as much work from the people that are coming to stay on the land as they typically would be. And then maybe they get together with the DAO and they're like, hey y'all, let's throw a big party and burn everybody's intent tokens. Maybe whoever wants to volunteer, you're doing it just for the sake of the DAO. It's gonna be fun as hell anyway. We should throw a party, invite a bunch of people. If we can really spread the word, then we'll probably get some NFT sales. Those tokens mostly will be burned. Some of them will go to the resident multi-sig. Some of it go to the pay it forward wallet. And then a bunch of people will come to the land for a weekend, and each one of those people that come will be burning 20 intent tokens per day. So you could reasonably, if you have a decent sized party, burn a lot of intent tokens and increase the value of intent globally in doing so. So those are the two mechanisms we would use for burning intent tokens and making sure that the value of them doesn't fall too far below $1. Because at over $1, people will stop using the intent tokens to buy NFTs. So the upward pressure will relax a little bit at that point. So the pressure, basically, the equilibrium of the intent token wants to be around $1 if everything's working well. All right. Well, I guess I'll start wrapping it up there. Just as an overview, what we're trying to do here, in addition to what I was saying early on, is make sure that the upside value accrual to the token goes to the project and not necessarily the people. We want the people that are involved in this to benefit from the success that the DAO has to a certain extent, but just to the extent that they're contributing value to the project. Okay, so we're using the token as a way to incentivize people to make intentional DAO better. If intentional DAO, becomes a phenomenon and everybody in the world's talking about it and everybody wants to join, that's the. I guess I'm sorry to say, like, the idea is for us not to get rich. The idea is for us to funnel that value back into the project and have a really incredible community, both online and in real life. So if somebody, has all these big, bags of intent tokens and they're hoping the value goes up, if the value ever gets above $3, like, sorry, like that's basically the max that they're ever going to be, because of the coin machine arbitrage opportunity. So all of that value ends up flowing back into the DAO. And then we use that to create an amazing DAO, right? So I wanted to mention that. So otherwise, it's like, I guess since we're talking about technical stuff, like for those of you that are really into crypto and wondering how this is all going to work behind the scenes, I think Colony will be able to handle a lot of this eventually. But right now they can handle the governance and the token minting and the Subdials, the proposals and the voting and the lazy consensus and all that stuff is already in place. But then I think we would use, the inflation is not there yet. So we would just mint a large number of tokens in the beginning, probably relatively soon, with maybe something like a 5 of 5 multisig, something that's very ungameable, or a 7 of 7 multisig. That would be like herding cats. But anyway, something like that in order to set up like an account with Superfluid, and we put all the tokens in there and dole out 75 tokens per day, each 25 to the different addresses that I was talking about. So the addresses get populated by Superfluid, and then Coordinate. At this point, we would probably just use that as an outside tool, and then we would have to take the results and somebody would input how many tokens each person should get based on like a spreadsheet that Coordinate spits out. So that's a little bit extra work, but it's a task somebody can take on to earn some intent tokens, because that'll be something valuable that somebody can add. And then other than that, I'm thinking of using Ramp for the NFT drop, to sell the NFTs, RAMPP. And that's a protocol that's built on top of Optimism. And Optimism is something that we've been talking about wanting to use just because their values kind of align with us. Like they're very into public goods and community building and doing right by the planet and all that kind of stuff, which is great. Colony's on Gnosis chain, and Ramp is on Optimism. So those are two separate chains, which is not ideal currently, but there are some things in progress that make that kind of okay. For example, Colony actually, I think, is right around the corner from releasing an extension that allows a colony on Gnosis chain to control a multisig on another chain like Optimism. So either that, or we could have, this is not ideal for sure, But in the very beginning, we could even have like a multi-sig that the funds we raise on on Optimism go into, and then we just every so often we take chunks of, the entire chunk of like stable coins that are in the Optimism multi-sig and move them over to the Colony treasury. So I think that's that's in a nutshell what we're thinking about tech-wise for the moment. And yeah, I think like the next step for us maybe is for people to wrap their heads around everything that I was just talking about, and then just start doing it. Just go ahead and start with the inflation and the coordinate rounds, and we won't have the residents yet, but we can start filling up the resident multisig so that when we do get the land and do have the residents, like they'll have a nice little estig there in order to maybe incentivize some people to come out and help them with a lot of work that's going to need to be done in the beginning, which I don't think will be a problem because everybody that wants to take part in something like this like enjoys that kind of stuff anyway. So yeah, I'll end it there. I'm gonna rewatch this and probably think of 5 million things that I wish I had said that I didn't, but I can always do more videos. So thanks, and I hope this makes sense. And yeah, I've put a lot of thought into the interactions between all these different mechanisms, and I really think it could work. So talk to you guys in the Discord later.